You ever wake up to the sound of everything going wrong at once? I mean, I've had bad mornings, but nothing compares to the one where the entire neighborhood's security system crashed right in the middle of an active police chase, no less. It was like something out of a movie, except this wasn't Hollywood. This was our corner of suburbia, and by the time the sun came up, nobody knew what the hell had happened. The bank on the corner got robbed, every single security camera on the block went dark, and one by one, people woke up to garage doors that wouldn't open. Motion lights frozen mid-flicker, and main security feeds dead as a doornail. Yeah, that happened. Meanwhile, the head of our homeowners association, Karen, you know the type, was out front of my house taking selfies on my roof, grinning like she'd just saved the world from an alien invasion. Except all she really did was slather my solar panels in ugly beige paint. Those panels weren't just for show. They powered the grid that ran all our surveillance, kept our homes safe, and made sure nobody from the outside could just stroll in and cause trouble. But nope, in one night, she managed to ruin the only shield this place had against chaos. I got yanked out of bed by the backup alarm on my server, and trust me, when you hear that thing, you know it's not a drill. All my primary lines were down. My first thought was, well, maybe a bird fried itself again. It's happened before, but then I pulled up the roof cam. That's when I saw it beige, paint thick and shiny, rolled over every inch of every panel. And who do you think did it? My security footage showed Karen herself, leopard print leggings, sunglasses at night, and a tennis visor like she was auditioning for a reality show, humming some opera remix while painting away, totally oblivious to the damage she was causing. It wasn't just stupidity either. This was arrogance on a whole other level, the kind you only see in people who truly believe they're above the rules. She had no idea those panels didn't just keep my AC running or heat my pool. 5 years ago, after a rash of break-ins, the HOA approved a contract to install a solar-powered security system. For obvious reasons, nobody knew which house ran the hardware, but it was mine. I set it up on the cheap as a favor because, unlike Karen, I actually cared about this neighborhood. By the time the sun was up, my phone was blowing up. Officer Grant needed surveillance footage. Mr. Delgado couldn't get his garage door open. Neighbors were texting nonstop about lights that wouldn't reset alarms, that wouldn't stop beeping a dog that slipped through a glitched gate, and someone's sprinklers had run for hours flooding their yard. All the while, Karen was online posting selfies and hashtags about neighborhood improvement like she'd just won a medal. I marched over to her house at sunrise, not even mad yet, just stuck somewhere between disbelief and that kind of tired amusement where you laugh because nothing else makes sense. She opened the door in a bathrobe straight out of a 1950s commercial, beaming with pride. Before I could say a word, she launched into her spiel how my solar panels were an eyesore, how they clashed with the approved color palette, and how she'd done everyone a favor by painting them over. She genuinely thought she was the hero here. I explained as calmly as I could that her little makeover had killed the entire security grid. She just laughed and said I was exaggerating. I pulled up the footage, her, the roller, the ladder, the humming. That wiped the smile off her face, but not for long. She pivoted right into denial, then deflection, then outright attack. Claimed the HOA had never approved any secret grid, and if it existed, it was illegal for me to run it without public documentation. I told her I had the contract signed by the previous board somewhere in my files. She just smirked. Well, good luck finding it. That's when I realized this wasn't about paint or aesthetics. She wanted control. Somehow she'd figured out what those panels were for, and she wanted the system dead so she could set up something new, something she could run or profit from. Right then, the neighbors started showing up. Jack from down the street fuming about his daughter's camera going dark. Mrs. Lopez nearly hysterical because her garage glitched and almost crushed her car. Within the hour, half the block was standing on my lawn, and Karen, red-faced but still defiant, kept insisting she was just looking out for community values. I told everyone to meet at the HOA building that night. I'd bring the proof. Back at home, I tore through my old records, HOA contracts, security plans, every piece of paperwork I'd ever bothered to save. The folder with the original contract was missing. In its place, a typed letter unsigned stating that the solar project had been canceled and wasn't covered by the HOA anymore. Looked official, but I hadn't written it and no one else had access to my locked cabinet unless someone broke in and made the paper trail vanish. So now it wasn't just Karen ruining my roof, it was her covering something up. I needed to know why. What was she trying to keep the cameras from seeing? I went digging through my encrypted backups, every version of every file I'd ever scanned. Turns out my old paranoia paid off. There it was, the original agreement with signatures, timestamps, everything. The HOA had authorized the system and paid for it until Karen took over and those payments stopped. She hadn't just painted the panels for looks, she'd spent years working her way up the board, driving out the old members, tightening the rules, raising fines, and quietly starving the surveillance system of funding. Even Nora, the sweet old treasurer, had packed up and moved overnight right after Karen took over. Now I realized Nora left a warning in her last email to me, Dev, if things go dark, trust what you built. Don't let them rewrite the truth. I needed backup. Phil, the former VP, still lived nearby. I called and he picked up on the second ring, his voice low and wary. He remembered the solar contract and wasn't surprised to hear Karen was behind this. Said she'd hated the idea of visible security, thought it made the neighborhood feel like a prison. Classic Karen logic, better to have the illusion of safety than the real thing. Phil agreed to bring his records to the meeting. Together we'd have everything we needed. I spread out copies of the files with trusted neighbors Jack Mr. Delgado, a few others just in case Karen tried to play dirty. That night, the community center was packed more people than I'd ever seen at any HOA meeting. Karen waltzed in late, dressed for court, and launched into a slideshow about beautification, showing off before and after pics, and finally a shot of my beige-painted roof. I let her finish. Then I played the footage, her the roller, the humming, every detail. Then I projected the contract signatures, and all right there for everyone to see. She sputtered, called it fake, accused me of doctoring everything. But then Phil walked in with a box of original minutes and vote records. It was game over. Even the retired judge in the crowd stood up and called for an inquiry. Karen was done as HOA president, at least officially. But I could see in her eyes she wasn't finished. That night I couldn't sleep. I had the uneasy feeling I'd just knocked the hornet's nest off the porch. I started combing through the network, checking for sabotage, when I remembered a little black box I'd built, a hidden backup node disguised as an attic vent. It didn't power anything, just recorded everything. Insurance. I pulled up the feed, not just from the night of the sabotage, but hours before. There was Karen hauling boxes from her car to a locked HOA storage shed. Boxes with security vendor barcodes, the same company I'd used to build our system. Why would she have that stuff unless she was planning her own private grid? I checked the vendor records. No new HOA orders in years, but 2 months back there'd been a big purchase under a different name shipped to the community center. The shed was locked down tight and I needed help to get in, so I called Joel, an old friend and cybersecurity whiz, told him the story, and all he said was, "Does it involve Karen? Give me an hour." At dusk, we slipped into the community grounds. Joel hacked the Wi-Fi, looped the cameras, and cracked the digital lock on the shed. Inside it wasn't decorations. It was surveillance equipment racks of cameras, signal boosters, a server hub. Karen had already started building a private system, unregistered, unapproved, and funded God knows how. Joel found active test footage clips from someone's backyard, even inside windows, all dated within the past week. We downloaded everything. Didn't touch a thing. The next morning I compiled all the files, wrote up a summary, attached the footage receipts logs, and sent it not to the HOA, but to the county compliance office and the DA. Anonymous, but I had backup ready for the residents. I wanted Karen exposed, not swept quietly under the rug. Turns out I wasn't the first to complain, just the first with solid proof. The DA called me that afternoon, and when I hung up, I knew Karen was in deep trouble. But Karen hit back fast flyers on every gate, accusing me of hacking, of spying, of all the things she'd actually done. Some folks believed her fear travels faster than truth. I called an emergency community meeting and laid out everything: photos, logs, videos, Joel's testimony. I didn't show the worst clips, just enough to prove the point. The room was dead silent. Karen tried to defend herself, said it was all for safety, just temporary modernization that she'd notify the board soon. But by now, nobody was buying it. One teenager asked why a camera pointed at his sister's window. That was it. Someone called for a vote. No one wanted Karen to stay. The room wanted official intervention, and Karen left without another word. Later that night, I got an email. No subject, just a photo from a camera hidden in my own house behind a bookshelf aimed at my desk. That's when I knew Karen had gone beyond petty HOA politics and into actual criminal territory. I found the device, handed it over to the sheriff. With the new evidence, the police seized everything: Karen's laptop, the secret server, the works. She tried to spin it as a witch hunt, but you can't explain away a hidden camera in someone's house. Turns out Karen had blueprints, lists, even a playbook for blackmailing or bribing people onto the HOA board, all to consolidate power. She was charged with illegal surveillance fraud, harassment, misuse of funds, the whole 9 yards. Still, even with her gone, the neighborhood felt different. People were cautious. But something good started to grow: a sense of real community. Phil took over as interim president. Old board members came back, and we rebuilt the grid with full transparency. No more secrets. The Thompsons, whose backyard was spied on, even started a legal group to teach other communities about privacy and HOA abuse. Me, I turned down a board seat. I told them I preferred to watch from the background, not Karen style, but the way a watchdog should. The night before the new grid went live, I stood on my roof watching the panels gleam black again. No more beige, no more tyranny. Peace at last. Or so I thought. Weeks later, I got a letter, no return address, just a flash drive and a note. You won this time, but I wasn't working alone. The drive had a spreadsheet, names, emails, HOA leaders from other towns, vendor contracts, shared logins. Karen had been part of something bigger. So I handed it over to the DA and let the law take it from there. And as I walked the neighborhood, hearing the normal sounds of life again, dogs barking, sprinklers going, kids playing, I realized justice sometimes doesn't look like a courtroom drama. Sometimes it's just a neighbor standing up and saying, no more. And this time, that neighbor had a solar grid, 3 backup drives, and a memory long enough to make sure no one ever tries that again. So what do you think? Was I right to dig so deep, or did I go too far? Where do you draw the line between community safety and privacy? Drop your take below, because after all this, I'm just as curious as anyone where folks stand on justice, power, and what it really means to watch out for your own.